So I want to thank the music team and Gloria for that beautiful reading. Our series right now is Who Are We? A better picture of what the Center for Spiritual Living in Southeast Louisiana stands for and embraces as we come together, as well as when we move through our individual daily lives. And today's topic is creating community, and precisely how we do that at this center. So your question for the week is this: what's the one thing that you might do to know that you belong to the tapestry of the one life? What's the one thing that you might do to know that you belong to the tapestry of the one life? So what does creating community really mean? Community in the dictionary is defined as a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. So when we speak of creating community at this center, we're speaking of creating a sense of belonging, a belonging to this center and a sharing of common attitudes, interests, and goals. And these attitudes, of course, include what we've already discussed the past part of this month: tolerance, integrity, inclusivity, as well as love for another. And if you missed any of those, you might want to go out to our website and check out the previous Sunday services. In this community, we embrace that we are each a child of the divine in whom God is well pleased. We belong and care about each other. It's who we are. Why else would we have a tagline of "Let the God times roll"? Each week we state in our community affirmation many of the attributes and common interests to which we aspire at this center. We aspire to be a place where people join in a community that cares for one another, to be a place that transforms people's lives, to be a place where each individual remembers the highest truth about themselves, a place where we learn spiritual tools for personal transformation, a place where we make the world a more joyful place. But before I explain what creating community means to me as a spiritual leader of this community, I thought I'd let you hear from a couple congregants and as to what they see creating community means at this center.
I'm Nancy Wirtz, and when I think about community, especially this community, I realize what I miss most during this pandemic is being in that community. Every day on my gratitude list, at the very top are the people in my life. I have wonderful people in my life. Many of them I know from right here in this community. And I know that I will be so excited when we can once again meet in person, because we miss seeing our baby, and we miss seeing our friends. It fills my heart when I think of them. And we all know that each of us can depend on the others. And I love this community. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people who've come together in hearts. So, thank you for being a part of this community.
Well, Nick, tell me, how do you create community, not only with our church family, but in our community where we live?
Well, we all basically have the same calling, I think, and that is to love God and love our neighbors as ourselves. So to build community, I think, is to be in love mode. Because when someone is in love mode, they're giving love and they're receiving love, and they can build that closeness, they can build that fellowship, that togetherness, that familyness is what they can do.
Yes, I agree totally. And I believe for me that I have to be very aware of when my ego has taken charge, because then I'm not being very loving or very supportive or very giving to my fellow human beings. And when I'm not being good to them, I'm not being good to me. So that's something I'm on the lookout for. And one of the ways that I have been creating community with different people is through my arts and crafts and being creative and allowing the master creator to work through me and giving gifts of these crosses that I've made. And these are Louisiana oyster shells, which is also meaningful to those of us who live in Louisiana and love our seafood. But I've been gifting these to people who may be facing different challenges, and they've all expressed what a blessing that has been. So that, of course, makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I have served and put my God self out there in the giving to others.
Well, one of the most difficult conditions that people can have, I think, is F-E-A-R, fear. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest fears is fears of being rejected. And so to come here to Center for Spiritual Living and to come to other places and feel that sense of being loved and accepted and not being rejected,
right,
you know, can be such an uplifting community building happening that can really, really, you know, make a very positive difference in some people's world.
Right, and it has made a difference in my life for sure. The total acceptance and the inclusion of all. And I love that aspect of our church.
Yes, yes. Another thing that I would like to mention is the importance of spreading the word.
Mm-hmm.
Because here we have this great loving, accepting family, togetherness, community right here. And what we would like to do for the highest good of us and all, and I believe it's our calling, is to spread the word about this community and tell people how loving and accepting and how family-oriented and togetherness-oriented it is, and encourage them to come by. And now here's a big one. When people come, particularly for the first time, we want to step forward and make them truly feel welcome and accepted.
Right, and that's our opportunity to spread the love.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So now that you've heard how Lee, Nick, and Nancy view our center as a place to create community, I want to give you my perspective and why it was a critical part of the foundation of this center that we know how to create community. Our founding father, Ernest Holmes, who, by the way, did not want to start church communities, wrote this: "There is not any human you and human me. There is only the divine one which flows through all, expressing that concrete individuality." So while he didn't want to start churches, what we know is that Jesus told us the power of when two or more people gather together in the name of the divine. So when we're seeking a place to gather, we want to be with like-minded individuals. And it's essential to know that who we are and who they are come together to create a commonality in terms of our spirituality. And because we're individual expressions of the divine, it's equally important to find a place where we feel safe to express our own ideas. Now, I suspect by now you're beginning to see why I felt it was so important to create a loving community. Stop for a moment and think of a beautiful tapestry woven from thousands of threads, each thread serving its own purpose and each thread bringing its own color to the overall masterpiece. Think about that same tapestry with just one thread missing or one thread that's been pulled and is out of place, doesn't the tapestry lose some of its beauty? It takes all of the threads coming together to complete that picture, to make that beautiful masterpiece. Our opening music today reminded us that we come together to bind our hearts and hands and form a tapestry that's woven from one life. And the song right before the message was about how we're woven together in love. Many textures, many colors, each one different from the other, yet entwined with each other in this one great tapestry. At our center, we want a community that's woven from many textures, from different colors, from people who are bringing their own thoughts and their own uniqueness to this community. It takes all of us coming together, bringing our own color, our own texture to the table to create the beauty of the masterpiece of life that is this center. Have you ever walked up really close to a tapestry so you can see all the individual threads? You get a different view there, but when we stand farther away, we can see that entire life of that tapestry. We get the bigger view. The closer view is more detailed, and yet it lacks the sense of all the threads coming together and being connected. In this community, we encourage people to stand out, to challenge the status quo, to think outside of the box of the traditional church, to bring up whatever's on their mind. Let's take that tapestry analogy just a bit further. What might we say about the threads that are yet to be woven into a tapestry? If a thread doesn't yet belong in a tapestry, it's not yet part of a masterpiece. It has not yet had an opportunity to live up to what we might call its fullest potential. We as individuals know love and connection through our contact with other people. We have all felt the impact of COVID-19 on these connections. I know I have. We've found alternate ways to connect. And I can just say that a Zoom meeting with my grandkids leaves a lot to be desired. I miss their hugs. I miss their faces when we're together and they're concentrating on something and unaware that I'm observing them. I miss that spontaneous laughter and giggles when they find something to tease their Grammy about. We need connections up close and personal. Martin Luther King, in his last Sunday's sermon before he died, said this: "We are tied together in a single garment of destiny." Now here's the caveat. It's not up to society to see that you belong. It's up to each of us to allow ourselves to belong. Many of us quit expressing our needs to each other for fear of appearing too needy. Einstein suggested that if we wish to transcend what he called the delusion of separateness, we must free ourselves from that prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in all its beauty. We used to need each other for survival. Now we need each other to feel valued, to feel connected, to feel cared about, to feel respected. So do you know the difference between heaven and hell? Here's a little story that might help you know the difference. So we open the doors, there's a beautiful dining hall, the finest of linens and china. The orchestra is playing, everyone is dressed elegantly and they have on their beautiful jewels. And there's a real feast, fine food and wine at a table. And as you're observing, you notice there's a sadness and a frustration in the room. And you look around and there's these very long forks that are set next to everybody's table. And the forks are really so long that even though they're able to get the food on them, They can't get the food to their mouths, so the people are frustrated. Now, you might ask, well, what is that? Well, that's hell. And what about heaven? Same scene. Beautiful dining hall, fine china, finest of linens, great food and wine on the table. But here, everybody's happy. There's wonderful conversation going on. And why is that? Because they've figured out that the way to eat is to feed the person across the table from you. Now that's heaven. That's coming together in a community and supporting one another. In our reading today, we heard Dr. Jones say, each one actually becomes a reflector for the other, magnifying God's magnificence and love. And what happened in that heaven dining hall was that people came together and figured out how to love each other. We need community to reflect love and laughter. We need to be in a place where, as we affirm every week, we care about each other. We need our spiritual community to fulfill our purpose on earth, like that thread that needs to be woven into a tapestry to really come to its fullest potential. We need to be able to see how we can be greater than just ourselves, greater than that single thread of life that we are, and become a part of the masterpiece that's bigger than ourselves. The Weave Us Together song said this: we're different instruments playing our own melodies, each one tuning to a different key, but we're all playing in harmony in one great symphony. In one great symphony. Symphonies require multiple people playing music on all kinds of different instruments. And for musicians, the music is the tapestry with each instrument weaving its own sound into that symphony. For musicians, their sangha is the orchestra. They play together. They weave their own keys on their own instruments into something greater than any one instrument could create if it were standing alone. Virginia Satir wrote, feelings of worth can flourish only in an atmosphere where individual differences are tolerated, communication is open, and rules are flexible. The kind of atmosphere that's found in a nurturing family. This center wants to be your nurturing family, your nurturing community, your sangha. Your place where you feel safe, respected, accepted, loved just as you are. Your place where your own unique spiritual nature can unfold with grace, elegance, and ease in your own time frame while we nurture and support you through that unfoldment. In the last paragraph of the reading, we heard, Sangha is not a building. It's a consciousness held by a collective group that welcomes, celebrates, and honors you just the way you are. Just the way you are. Honors you just the way you are. We at this center honor you just the way you are. He goes on to say, you'll know it because it's as if you have walked into a wall of love, immersing yourself in it. This center wants to be that wall of love. When we create community, we want to create a place where people want to be immersed in it. We're creating community so people can have a sangha in which love, acceptance, and individuality can thrive. To create a wall in which you can be immersed and feel safe. So I'm going to challenge you this week to find your sangha, to find the tapestry of which you wish to be a part, to find the one thing that you might do to belong to the tapestry of the one life. So let's pray. So just taking a deep, nourishing breath. Embracing that idea of that wall of love in which we are immersed. And knowing that that is the divine showing up as love, acceptance, tolerance, diversity, freedom, grace. And all that the divine is, because we're individual expressions of that, lives right within us. So we're just embracing that and allowing that to settle into our being. And what I know to be the truth is that this week, at some point, that you're going to take that thread of life that you are and weave yourself into a small community, a bigger community, become a part of this center, whatever it might be, so that you can begin to be a part of something bigger than yourself, a part of something that the divine knows you're capable of, even if in your own being right now you haven't yet seen the full picture because you're too close to the tapestry. So I am grateful. I'm grateful to know that that divine without is the divine within each of us. I am grateful to know that wherever each of us are, the divine is, and that wall of love is right there, ready for us to immerse ourselves in it, ready for us to feel love and acceptance, and be in a place where our individuality can really, truly thrive. And it's from all that gratitude that I just released these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action. Because what I know about the divine is that this has already been called done. It's already seen as good and very good and already happening. And each of us is embracing it. So I can just let it be. I say amen, and we affirm it together, and so it is. And so this is our time for our offertory blessing song, and I invite you to sing along with our music team.